We got some amazing news the other day, and that is Pixar is cutting a storyline out of Win or Lose in saying that we recognize that parents would be uncomfortable with something like this, and they would like to have these conversations with their children at a time that they deem appropriate. Has Disney finally gotten wise? Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Guys, we're winning. And why are we winning? Well, I'm winning. I don't want to speak for everybody. Disney cancels divisive Pixar content, declares parents prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children.
What a crazy about face that is.
Yes.
Massive
It is the
story.
first time in forever that I have seen Disney actually apologize for something. And I think that they mean it, maybe not in the exact way that they mean it, that they say it, but they mean it. They acknowledge that parents prefer to have these discussions with their children on their own timeline. Let's read it from Marvin Montanaro.
It only cost them, learning that lesson only cost them a literal $1 trillion.
Whoops.
Disney, the same studio behind Lightyear, has cut a pride-related, gender-focused storyline from Pixar's forthcoming series, Win or Lose. We win, they lose. In an astounding about-face, the company stated that parents should have the freedom to address such topics with their children when they feel it's appropriate. That would be the plural they. They're not referring to a specific parent and then referring to them with non-specific pronouns here. This move comes as a shock, considering that the Walt Disney Company has often embraced identity politics. That's funny. Embraced identity politics, injecting divisive content into children's programming at nearly every opportunity. Win or Lose is a Disney Pixar original series following a middle school co-ed softball team called the Pickles. As they prepare for a championship game, each episode of this limited series explores the home life of a different character, including coaches, umpires, and the middle school aged players themselves. One of the eight episodes.
I'm glad you're picking up on me trying to hammer that in.
We're on the same wavelength here, Marvin. One of the 8 episodes originally featured lines focusing on a character who identifies as a gender different from their anatomy. We're being careful here to stay in the good graces of the advertisers and get the message out as wide as we can, because everybody knows what we mean. However, Disney confirmed to The Hollywood Reporter that it has cut those lines in the character's pride-centric storyline from the show. When it comes to animated content for a younger audience, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline. A Disney spokesperson said in a statement to THR. I like to think that this person was wiping the snot from their nose and crying and trying to hide the tears, as they said, when it comes to animated content for a younger audience. We recognize that many parents, I don't need to go through the whole bit here.
That's going to be really hard when the snot gets all tied up in their septum ring.
Got to keep that thing clean. I've been waiting for this for years.
You have the air of just a man triumphant right now.
This was the entire thing that I got on YouTube for. This to me is so important. Everything woke. The entire reason behind that channel was because I would go and people would ask me, hey, you keep up with this stuff. What's in this? What's in that? And I started to describe things and eventually they would go, really? And then, oh yeah. And also, don't you know that in this one? And then they would go, and really? And eventually my wife was like, okay, you're starting to sound like a lunatic the more that you talk about these things. So we decided that it was better to be a little bit more organized. So the entire purpose of the Everything Woke channel was so that I could have something to point to say, here's your list of Disney stuff. No, it's not 1. No, it's not 2. And no, it's not on the front end to where you watch a couple episodes and you figure this out. This was to make it clear to maybe not even the YouTubers here, maybe not the people in our space, and maybe not the Twitter activated people who are looking for this stuff, to say, hey, no, here's a long list of what's going on. And also for people to encourage parents to watch these things with their children so they understand what their children are intaking. And yes, media does affect people. For those of you who would like to say on the bad end, even in the right wing space, that, oh, I can watch this and it won't affect me, I think you're fooling yourself a little bit here. Everything that we take in affects the state of our heart. So, anyways, that's one of the reasons that the Everything Woke channel stopped being as big of a priority. Also, a bunch of things on that Park Place also took off at the same time. I wanted to get the point across that people need to be paying attention to what's going on in their kids' content. So it's slowed down. So that's a little extra content for anyone, context for anyone who doesn't understand what I'm talking about here. I've ranted here a little bit. Vash, Marvin, do you have anything to say about this win or lose situation at this point?
Look, at the end of the day, I think anyone who thinks that Disney is making some kind of ideological shift is fooling themselves. I think what happened was they took a bath on Lightyear, they took a bath on Strange Worlds, and then all of a sudden they put out Inside Out 2 and made almost $2 billion. They made the highest grossing animated film of all time. And they did that because they went back and they were like, hey, all this divisive stuff that we've got in this movie, we're going to take it out. We got to just put.
And it wasn't even that good of a movie when it comes down to it. It was a pale impression of the first film.
It's like they've starved the audience for appropriate content for so many years now that now just giving them middle of the road generic nonsense, as long as it doesn't have those divisive elements in it, will lead to financial success, and that is an interesting precedent.
Well, one thing they've definitely done is they've made it to where I now have taste opinions on which are the good Illumination films versus which are the bad Illumination films, which are the good DreamWorks films, which are the maybe not so great DreamWorks films. And by the way, there are actually some pretty good ones in there. Obviously, The Wild Robot being near the top of the pile for DreamWorks, which I think if that one deserves the best animated picture Oscar, in my opinion. Some of them are Despicable Me and or Minions, and some of them are things that really speak to the heart. To me, this is everything Disney has done to destroy their brand, and they are finally saying, and they never apologize. They have never made a mistake that they are aware of, and this to me is saying we made a mistake. We recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline. You're darn right they do.
This is the abusive ex coming crawling back and being like, I could change, baby, I could change. And then you go back, and then they're going to do it again.
They have learned a very hard lesson, I think, and I do agree with your opinion, Marvin, that ideologically internally they haven't changed. We saw the voice actor come out that was going to be playing this trans child here, and they were distraught over what had happened. Ideologically inside, I don't think they've shifted all that much. However, I do think they've shifted in terms of the outward guest facing view of the company and what they actually put out. We saw, Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur, that episode that apparently featured some themes that might have taken that those times and terms away from parents. That wasn't actually released. We didn't get a statement like this from it, but we did hear about how internally Pixar was struggling with Riley and Inside Out, and they were trying to not make it seem as if her relationship with her friend there had, there was any meaning behind that. So we've seen kind of a shift in terms of, and especially from Pixar, in terms of all this stuff, and that's probably due to Lightyear and some other issues. The question really is, do we see this throughout all the tendrils of the company? Do we see all of the units kind of get behind this? Like, if we get ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls back into the parks, that's going to be a big deal.
I agree.
It's been insane to watch people's heads explode. On the other side, the people that they were pandering to, that they have now realized are not as big of a market as they thought they were. We're watching them melt down in real time now, and Disney's going to have to just kind of be like, well, sorry.
Yeah. Some of the reactions I've seen online.
Should have spent more money.
Some of the reactions that I've seen online to this are people that have been Disney shills. jokingly refer to them as cupcakers, that they just want their free stuff from the parks. It's not only that they just want their free stuff from the parks, but they're willing to praise almost anything that Disney makes. They're not in the right market for something like this, but they're okay with things that are not appropriate for children being in children's content here. And they want to wag the finger at parents who say, hold on here. I would like to have that conversation with my child at the time that I see fit, and not through some random stranger at Pixar trying to force that conversation down my throat and down my kid's throat. They've shown they have zero judgment when it comes to this. And on the subject of that Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur episode, somehow I came across a copy of it. It's a pretty bad one, but there are episodes of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur that push for that kind of stuff anyways.
But you know, the reason why you were able to see it is because the rot is so deep in the Disney company that you have these activists who are willing to risk their jobs to leak that online because they felt it had to be seen.
That's true. And when we talk about the pixie dusters or the cupcakers or whatever, I don't mean to make any gross generalizations, but they tend to be childless adults, at least disproportionately anyway. So I think your perspective changes when you have kids of your own. As we've seen in some polling, the large majority of families with children tend to run a little bit more of the conservative spectrum than, the liberal one. And so I think that shapes this narrative as well, especially from that side. It's just when you have kids and when you're attempting to have these discussions with them on your own terms, on your own timeline, definitely changes things for sure.
Totally agree. And to me, this is a small victory for me, because I'm really exhausted at the idea that I need to screen everything my children watch. I got to say, their tastes are not the same as my own. So I've gotten familiar with the kind of things that can get a child's attention that, you've got to do better, some of these companies here.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.